or some tech or all of those things. And I'm very, very excited about this program because we have a solid lineup of people. So we have people who have managed projects for years. We have people who are professional development specialists, and we have people who are HR specialists. So they will be sharing. We will also have a time for Q&A. So to get us started, just a few housekeeping things. The Menti code, and we will be using Menti for the Q&A session. So the Menti code is 5226-9905. If somebody can please put it in the chat box for me, Pastor Winger, please. The Menti code is 5226-9905. And now we will transition on, and we're going to first of all start with an opening remark. So while we start with the opening remarks, you can begin to think about your questions and get your questions together. I am going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to introduce one of our panelists who is also going to be giving us the opening remarks. So my name is Ayo Ogunye. I serve as an assistant director for employer relations at Wright University. And I also serve on a board on a leadership board, Impact Leadership Academy. I love to do professional development, and I love to do all things human resources. I always encourage people to look beyond just getting a job or just getting a profession or just looking for an employment. We should really be thinking about professional development, because that's what's going to take us from one level to the other. And that is in all aspects and all spheres of our career. So we're going to be talking about some of those things today. And then we'll also leave some time at the end of the seminar where you can, ask personal questions of any one of the panelists. So Menti code again is 5226-9905. Please remain muted. Please remain muted, because we want to have a smooth seminar this morning. If you have any questions, I would strongly encourage you to please use the Menti code. Okay, so I am going to introduce one of our panelists. We have 3 people on the panel, but I'm going to start with the first panelist, and this is the panelist who will be giving us the opening remarks. Sam Ojofoetimi is an HR professional with over 20 years of experience and expertise in talent acquisition. His experience has taken him through transitions of organizations like with Avis, Dell Computers, Citigroup, and RSM. He also ran his own recruiting practice for 6 years before transitioning back into the corporate world. Sam has for the past 6 years, and now he currently works in the recruiting team at Cheniere Energy, based in the downtown Houston area, where he is one of the leaders of the recruitment and talent program supporting several departments: supply chain, information technology, engineering support, human resources, legal, and this is just to name a few. Sam is an SHRM, that is the Society for Human Resources Management. He's certified as a human resources professional. He earned his bachelor's in economics from the City University in New York City, and his master's in human resources education with a concentration in organization development from Fordham University. From being a business owner and a corporate professional, Sam has a passion for talent acquisition, making sure organizations and individuals find the right fit to grow in their business and careers. Sam enjoys reading business publications, staying current and recruiting trends and practices, road biking, and traveling. Sam resides in North Spring, Texas with his wife, Tokwe. They've been married for 23 years and they're counting. They are blessed with 2 children, their son, Boluri, a junior in college, and Temilolu, their daughter, a senior in high school. Please, virtually, let's give Sam a round of applause. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sam.
Well, thank you. Thank you so very much for that introduction. I don't think I've ever been introduced that way before, but at least you get the full picture of who I am. So thank you so very much, Ms. Ogunye, for that introduction. So what I intend to do this morning is really walk us through a number of phases. And what I'm going to actually do is actually share my screen, if I may. And I hope you all can see my screen now.
Yes.
Wonderful. So what we're talking about career transitions. So let me just kind of go to the next slide here. So I'll just start off with career transitions is really a period where one is changing their orientation to a job. It could be the same type of job or very different role. For the purposes of this presentation, and I have a few slides that I'll walk you all through, we'll look at the entire career spectrum as a process of change. Given that the majority of our audience are folks in the workplace already, we'll concentrate our discussion in this fashion. So we'll start with reinventing your career. Are you looking to change your functional area of focus, to do something completely different? Transitions within your current company. Are you looking to make a move within your current company? Starting your career. Are you a recent graduate? Are you somebody who just went through a course and you're looking to begin your career in this new chosen field of yours? So we'll isolate some common themes, as all of these phases have many common items and action items tied to them. What I intend to do is really just provide us all with a broad overview for the next few minutes or so to really set the stage for our panel discussion and really provide answers to many of our questions and really shed light on navigating these career transitions. But what I will say is, let's anchor the outline that you're looking at here with the following scripture. Proverbs 4:7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. With all thy getting, get understanding. Understand yourself, understand your why, understand the steps you need to take. Reinventing your career. I think this will appeal to the most of the folks in the audience here. Perhaps you've been thinking about saying goodbye to your current career, or you're feeling unsatisfied, unfulfilled with your current career. Here are some things to consider. And oh, by the way, if you haven't grabbed a pen and a piece of paper, do so right now, because I'll drop some nuggets that I think will make our conversation and discussion rich here. So first step, imagine your future. What does that future look like? What do you like? What would you prefer to be doing? What is it about your current situation that you want to change? Could be lifestyle, it could be work, the combination thereof. And really, what are you looking for in a new job? What are you looking for in a new role? And extrapolate that out some more. What are you looking for overall? Taking the steps. Plan your work and work your plan. Prepare your mind prayerfully. Prepare your resume. Prepare your cover letters. Prepare your 30-second pitch. Prepare your profile statement. And plan your moves. Review job descriptions and map your experience to those descriptions as you see. Network. Connect with professionals in the functional disciplines that you're interested in. You have a church community, you have family. Connect with them because they're also in the workplace. Explore options. Obviously, in order for you to explore, you're going to have to apply to jobs. You're going to go through the process of interviewing. And perhaps you may find yourself in a situation where you have an opportunity to volunteer. It gives you the opportunity to explore what those options look like. Build the skills relevant to your future. Attend seminars, attend webinars, attend conferences like this. Obviously do so with wisdom, because you don't want to spend thousands of dollars going to conferences and just having a good time, but you do so purposefully. Leave things behind. And really what I mean by that is leave past hurts behind. Consider or analyze when you start a sentence with, when I was at so-and-so company. I did this, I did that. It's one thing to have a conversation with somebody, but you want to make sure that they leave that conversation almost uplifted. So in those conversations, make sure that they're positive conversations. We all have had them. We've all had bad bosses. We've all had bad job experiences. Do not lead into those conversations with those bad experiences. because those will only reveal past hurts. So leave hurts behind, leave certain things behind. And what I would also end with here on this slide is be patient. Who knows how long the process will take? In short, assess your situation, plan your path, then act. Don't do it backwards. I can share stories of situations where folks have done the fire, ready, aim. You know, what you really want to do is you want to plan it. You want to aim, you want to be ready, and then you want to fire. You know, Proverbs 16:3 says, commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. Proverbs 23:7 says, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. So don't think about the past hurts. Think about your future. Think about where you want to go. I must have spoken with tens of thousands of people over my 20 plus years. The one thing that I know is that when you start the motion of looking for a job, interviewing and what have you, you almost get energized from that experience because if you're doing all the right things, you're preparing. So I tell folks, especially on my talent acquisition side, when I talk to recruits, I said, you know what? The one thing I know is that you're talking to me, so you're acting like you're leaving. You're acting like you're leaving your current job. So guess what? It's just a matter of time. You're going to leave. It's just a matter of the right opportunity coming about as well. Transitions within your current company. Making a transition within your current company can be a viable pursuit for sure. Here are some things you should consider. Research the function. Know the impact of that function in the company. Educate yourself on the role. Identify the skills and competencies and match them to yours. You know, obviously there are going to be gaps. Like they say in the UK, mind the gap on the underground. So obviously the minding the gap those are the learning opportunities for you to sort of press into. I'll add, engage your manager. That may feel a little dangerous, but it really depends on how it's phrased. It depends on the relationship that you have with your manager. You know, but talk to your manager about your interest as it relates to the department, as it relates to the company, and your growth and development. Use your annual review process, your mid-year review process as opportunities to retool and redirect. Know your strengths and opportunities. Again, mind the gap. Network within the company. All of our companies have they have several departments. You have colleagues. Initiate one-on-ones, initiate skip one-on-ones. Go beyond the meetings that you have. Lunch, leverage the employee resource groups that you have within the company you work. Cross-train. Do other tasks in addition to your primary responsibilities. Go above and beyond. Don't neglect your primary responsibilities. Obviously, that's what you're there for. So if you can't really do what you were hired to do, don't go chasing after another opportunity or something else, but make sure that you stick the landing on your primary responsibilities. Take on related projects. Within your functional area, there are sub-functions. For example, I work in HR. Within HR, there's payroll and benefits, there's HR IS, which is Human Resource Information Systems, there's employee relations, there's talent acquisition and where I sit. In accounting, there's accounts payable, there's accounts receivable, there's within accounting, usually you find accounting and finance tied together. So accounting and finance people work hand in hand a lot. There are treasury functions within that accounting and finance function. And there's several other functions. And it's a matter of networking to somebody who's doing that job, taking them to lunch, going to lunch with them, you know, joining perhaps organizations that they belong to. Same thing in IT. So we have very several sub-functions within what we do within our organizations. Offer to join departmental project teams. There's always a project going on. There's always an initiative going on, especially this time of the year when everybody's, they're doing their annual reviews. They're about to start setting their goals for next year. This may be a time to kind of find out what the plans are for 2023. And oh, by the way, there will come a point in time where you do land and you're able to transition within the organization. Once that role has been identified and you're transitioning, plan your transition well. Don't check out of your current role and leave a legacy of destruction behind or uncompleted tasks behind. Transition well, hand over well, provide, a walkthrough. Here are the things, and of course, you're still within the company. Make yourself accessible. You're leaving one department, you're going to another department. Make it a positive transition. Patience and emotional control. This journey may take a while. Be prepared in case it does. Your attitude as you journey through your transition phase is going to be very important. A personal example for you. In my current company, I applied for a position. I didn't get the job. They hired somebody else. I could have sat back and sulked, but nothing has changed. The energy level is still the same. The focus is still the same. I'm a little hurt, but you know what? God has a plan. So inform yourself through this process, engage and stay focused. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not unto thine own understanding, and in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. James 1:4 says, but let patience have her perfect work in you, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So starting your career, last but not least, and quite frankly, a very important one, and the one that is actually quite near and dear to my heart, because, for those who are starting out their career, like in my case, in my home, where I have some young adults that I try to advise. For those you've prepared academically, you've prepared your resume, you've prepared your cover letters, you know your pitch, you've prepared to dress for success because your wardrobe is ready and you know what you're going to wear. Guess what? You have to identify the roles and the companies that you're going to apply to, that you're going to target. What are your sources for that? You're currently in school or you're starting out your career. Use job search agents, use job alerts. You've got the career placement office at your school. They have career fairs. You have informational sessions that companies come to your campus to do. Attend them, learn, research employers, know the company, know what they do, be in tune with the latest news. Google is your friend in this case. You can actually set up alerts and Google will send you alerts based on the searches that you've put in on those specific companies. So you'll know the latest news. And of course, what you want to focus on is talk about the positive news. Again, don't create awkward conversations for yourself. Social media detox. Clean up and positively enhance your media presence. Now that Elon owns Twitter, I don't know. Stay away from sensitive topics like politics and radical opinions. So you've got your IG, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, clean it up. Create and polish, enhance your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one, establish it, start it. LinkedIn is an amazing tool, and it actually leverages some artificial intelligence, some machine learning to actually bring former classmates, former coworkers into your stream that you can actually connect with. Communicate, let your circle of influence know that you're looking. Identify the professionals in your circle, your friends of friends, your relatives. And then of course, prepare for your interviews. You're going to, in this day and age, as we're doing right now, there are a lot of opportunities for virtual interviews. Those are going to happen. Phone screens, that's what I do all day. Of course, you have the in-person interview that's going to happen as well. So opportunities are practice, mock interviews. YouTube is your friend in this case too, because there are a lot of examples and videos of interviewing on YouTube. Practice your responses. Perfect example, me presenting to you, you don't want to know how much time I practiced. Show up, put your best foot forward, show up on time, rehearse the journey. If you know you have an interview on Monday and Houston traffic is, we all know, can be nightmarish, practice the route. There's a lot of construction going around. Practice the route. Show up prepared. Show up looking the part. You don't get a second chance at a first impression. So get on your mark, get set, go. Because you know what? For you that are starting out your career, your competition is your classmate. Luke 14:28-30 says, "For which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" So just to kind of capture the themes here, and they're common themes, and I'm sure you pick them up throughout the process, because again, a lot of these things sort of overlap each other. But in mapping out the common themes, here are the essentials. Self-knowledge. Basically, it is, what's your passion? Ask yourself the critical questions. What do I want to do? Plan and prepare. That's self-explanatory. Have a plan, have a B plan, and work your plan. Focus. Spend time in prayer. Stay the course and track your progress. And then, of course, act. Pursue the opportunities, apply for positions, follow up. Don't be afraid to make the phone call. Don't be afraid to send the email. And in some cases, you may find yourself, because you have it, because I do it all the time, you may even text. So at the center of it all, you'll land and you'll maintain that landing. You'll stick the land and your career is off to a great start. Your transition is off to a great start, whether it be complete career change, whether it be within the company, and certainly a start. So thank you for your time. I will now sit in the panel seat, and I'd love to hand it over to Mrs. Ogunye.
Thank you very much. I think that was very, very insightful. So just to summarize some of the things that Sam talked about, he talked about the power of networking. Networking also to tie that with personal brand. So one of the things you should be thinking about, even as we go through this process, is what is your personal brand? What are you showing up as? Because your personal brand is really what's going to make all these things come together. Then he talked about exploring the different options. So a lot of us are in different phases of our career or our profession. So exploring all the different options. He talked about making a plan. Not only should you make a plan, then you should also act. You should take action on the plan you make. He talked about knowing what your strengths are, what are the opportunities out there. That is very key. If you don't know what the opportunities are, if you don't know what your strengths are, then you wouldn't really be able to identify the opportunities that are available to you. Then the other thing I would add to that is that you have to know what relevant skills you have. And if you don't have those relevant skills, you have to identify any skills gaps that you have and then figure out how to fill those gaps. He talked about cross-training, and that's extremely important. You know, I've heard many times where people say things like, oh, they feel like they're being discriminated against. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, or they're saying that I think like I'm being passed over for a position in my organization. And I'm not saying that things like that don't happen also. But the thing is that to thine own self be true. Have you really looked at yourself and see, have you cross-trained? Are you able to do this job you're applying for? Have you even gone to a different department to see how they do things there so that you're cross-trained and then you can show that you're relevant, you have the relevant skills to do the job? Why are opportunities not coming your way? Why are you not getting the jobs that you're applying for? This is a time to actually do a critical evaluation of your skills and where you are to see, why am I not getting it? And then he summed it up by talking about the tools that are necessary to make these changes. So we can talk about all these things as much as we want, but if you don't have the right tools, which could be things like your resume, things like your LinkedIn profile, things like your networking skills, for people like me that are introverts, networking is extremely difficult, but it has to be done. It's something that you have to master. So maybe you want to do a priority list in terms of what are the tools that you need. Maybe for you as an introvert like me, the number one thing is to figure out how to get around networking, because believe it or not, I do this every day in my job. Those jobs or those opportunities that you're looking for, you can only get that through networking, believe it or not. Yes, there are jobs that are posted online and people tell you about opportunities here and there. If you're not able to network yourself in, it's going to be difficult. So thank you so much for sharing that, Sam. So now we're going to go into our panel discussion, and I am going to just read the bio of the other two people on our panel, and I'm just going to have them share in 2 minutes any additions to what Sam has said, or anything that stands out for them, or anything that we want to add to that. So our second panelist is Harry Akinola. And Harry Akinola, he brings 15 years plus experience in the entire organizational capabilities, value chain, which will be things like talent, learning, executive coaching, and organization effectiveness. His life goal is to help people become better and live excellent lives by recognizing, maximizing, and capitalizing on their best strengths. He has headed up several talent, learning, and leadership development teams in several multinational organizations, including Puma Energy and Standard Bank Group. His most recent role was Global Head of Talent, Learning, and Development at Puma Energy, with presence in over 40 countries across Africa, Americas, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. Harry Akinola is also a conference speaker on leadership, career, and learning, as well as an author of 4 published books, all focusing on helping people fulfill their God-given potential, as well as to grow emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Harry holds a bachelor's degree in geology, a doctorate degree in learning, leadership, and organizational development, an executive coaching certificate from Gordon Institute of Business Sciences, South Africa, as well as an executive leadership certificate from Oxford University. He is currently the Chief Talent Officer, Executive Director for Business Banking and CCB Corporate Functions at JP Morgan Chase. Let's give him a virtual welcome. Thank you so much, Dr. Harry. We are glad to have you here, and we're excited to learn from you. So the third panelist we have is Akin Oni. Akin Oni is a senior project executive in the oil, gas, and mining industries for well over 3 decades. He is currently the senior director within Cheniere Energy engineering and construction team, with responsibilities that span all major LNG pipelines and infrastructure developments and new growth opportunities. Prior to joining Cheniere, Mr. Oni held several project delivery, functional, and transactions project management roles in the oil, gas, and mining industry in Nigeria, the UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, and the US for the likes of BHP, Stantec, Netco, and so on. He earned a BSc degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Ife in Nigeria and an executive MBA in project management from Athabasca, Canada. Mr. Oni is a certified PMP, a project management professional for those who don't know what that is, and a certified cost engineer, a certified professional in training management, and a distinguished Toastmaster. His cross-continental engineering project management career is further enriched by his undeniable passion for people, planning, and performance, and their overall impact on the society. Whether at work or away from it, Mr. Oni's values remain respect, authenticity, integrity, service, and excellence, something he terms with the acronym RAISE. When not at his desk, Mr. Oni enjoys photography, writing, traveling, volunteering, spending time with his family, and all things real football, also known as soccer. So let's welcome Mr. Oni as well. So you can see that we have a robust people with a diverse and global experience on our panel. So please take advantage of the Q&A and ask your questions of these professionals. Thank you again for joining us. So I'm going to give each Mr. Oni and Dr. Harry 2 minutes each to either amplify something that Sam talked about, or maybe something that stands out for you that you want to elaborate on, or something just to add to what he said, and then we'll move on into the Q&A session. Mr. Oni, over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ogunye. And good morning, everyone. Brother Sam actually said a lot of what I would normally talk about, but I'm going to zero in on bullet number 2 of his third slide, where he talked about reinventing your career. And that bullet number 2 says, take the needed steps. This is one of the areas where believers, those of us who serve God, this is one of the areas where we miss it. In the first 11 verses of the book of John, chapter number 2, and again, I'm not preaching today because Pastor Benga told me that my hour hasn't come yet. However, when I look at that particular passage of the scripture, that's where Jesus changed water to wine. My entire life is actually predicated on verse number 7 of that passage, where the Bible says, Jesus said to his servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. As someone in transition, as a Christian, are you daily filling the empty jars in your career with water? Are you going daily to the Lord to tell him, Lord, show me where my jars are empty and I want to fill it? Because that is what you have to do. You don't need God to do that for you. He has given you the power to do it. And in my career, I found out that me understanding what I need to do, me taking the needed step, is actually a recipe for success in all the continents of the world where I have done projects, except Antarctica. I have the uncommon privilege of touching projects directly or remotely in all continents of the world as of this morning, except the Antarctica. Now, where am I going with this? If you are hearing me today, you are in transition. Ask yourself, what steps do you need to take so that Christ can fill the jars, can turn the jars of your career to wine? It is something that I've found out that over time, we don't do well. I encourage you today, know where you are, know where you want to go, and then do the very best that you can. All of us, I've had someone say this before, all of us, God gave us trees. And we are praying to him to give us furniture. But he said, I already gave you trees. You can make whatever you like with it. So what is it that God has deposited in you? Who can you become? In fact, I can tell you right now, somewhere deep inside you, you know really who you are meant to be. You know that you are underperforming. You know that you are not taking the right steps. I am here to challenge you this morning. And I'm telling you, because this is how God has challenged me in my career. What is it that you need to do differently? And that's why that bullet in that presentation really hit home for me. Take the needed steps. What are those steps that you need to take? I can't answer that question for you. You be the judge. Back to you, Mrs. Ogunye.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Dr. Harry, do you have something to add?
Yeah, maybe a little, but that was quite profound. And I'm just wondering what else is there for me to add. But I'll say this, that in the last few minutes, these are great points, very robust thoughts. And maybe the only thing I'll probably echo is the ownership of your career. You know, at the end of the day, it is your career, it's nobody else's career. You want to grow, honestly, your business. You don't want to grow your business. But if indeed you want to grow and be everything that God has called you to be, then you need to take ownership of your development. You need to set that goal for development. You need to have a vision for that career you want to have. And I'm sure we're going to get the time to tell the stories and share some live examples. But just to add to that, that's one thing I would say. The second thing I'll say is this. I think we are always too focused on an onward and upward career, or an onward and upward movement for career development. And a lot of times that's where people miss it. Onward and upward is great, and we all pray for promotions. But career development does not necessarily have to be onward and upward. Sometimes it can be forward and toward. And that means you got a goal. It means sometimes you're going to take the left step to take the right one. It means sometimes you're going to take a pay cut because you want to build a skill for you to get a higher job. It means sometimes you're going to prioritize your family and you're going to take a lower job because you want to focus on that aspect of your life. We need to start thinking about career development holistically. It is not just about the next promotion. It is not just about the next pay raise. It is not just about the next big organization. It is a next step in your career journey, a journey you are clear about because you've got a vision, because you've got a goal. And I think if we start thinking that way, you start seeing in your life that you're actually making real progress. Or perhaps you've had opportunities where progress, the next step is calling you, and you are looking at the next step from the eyes of onward and upward only, but maybe what you need today is just to pursue forward and toward that goal, that vision. I'm going to stop there because I know we're going to have opportunity to say more. Thanks. Back to you, Auntie.
Wow, that is fantastic. I am getting excited already and I'm learning a whole lot. So again, like I said, if you have family, friends, people that you think will benefit from this, please share the link with them and have them join the conversation. You know, just to, now we're going to transition into our Q&A panel questions, but I just want to set a tone for that, where we're going to start off. And I'm going to ask Sam the first question. So the National Association of Colleges and Employers, this is an association that comes together with colleges and employers, and they do a survey every year. What is this survey about? They do the survey to find out what are the employers really looking for. Even though it's done by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, it's just, let's just focus on the employer part of it. Okay, so what the employer does is, what the association does is they reach out to employers and they want to know, what are you looking for in an employee? What in your eyes, or what in your opinion, based on your organization, what you do, what do you consider a person is, what skills do you consider a person to have that makes them competent to do the job? So they call these things core competencies. So they do it every year. The core competencies had been the same standard for, I want to say, about 10 years. But then something happened in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. In 2020, we went through a pandemic, and that pandemic changed a whole lot of things. It changed the way we do business. It changed the way employers actually had to go back to the drawing board and change a whole lot of things. A lot of positions were lost because now they figured out that people can do things in a better way. So that particular year, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they did their research again, they did their survey. And this year, the whole thing changed. Remember, I said what they considered core competencies was standard for 10 years plus. But in 2020 to 21, when they did it, all of it changed. All the core competencies that were in effect, like, let's say, at the beginning of 2019, beginning of 2020, all of it changed. So now employers identified 8 areas of core competencies, and I'll put that in the chat box. The first one is career and self-development. The second one is communication. The third one is critical thinking. The third one is equity and inclusion, and we know why that came up. The fifth one is leadership. Then we have professionalism, teamwork, and technology. And all these were not core competencies that they required before. So to summarize what I just said, in order for you to be competent to work for an employer, the skills that they want to look for are all of these skills, if not like 70 or 80% of these skills, if not all of it. So my question to you, Sam, is this. Knowing what this core competencies is, knowing what the NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, have identified, one of those areas is career and self-development. Can you please share some insights about this core competence and how do we develop it? Because now we know we need it.
Okay. Thank you. So career and self-development, and I'll extrapolate to what Mr. Oni said earlier. And I think we can use this analogy very, very well. Your vessel is full of water. That's your core. That is absolutely your core. You've got what you need to be successful. God has equipped you with everything and all that you need to achieve what it is that He has for you. So it's a matter of how you now work and what you now do. First, prayer, obviously. But the other piece of it is that what are you filling your jars with? How are you turning that water to wine? How are you doing that? So career development options, and I'll throw this off the top of my head. Organizational memberships. Equip yourself. If you're an accountant, join the National Association of Accountants, whether it's National Association of Black Accountants. If you're in HR, join SHRM. If you're in training, join the respective organization. If you're in supply chain, join the supply chain organization. There are tons and tons of resources that those organizations put out. That's how you expose yourself to that. I mentioned in the conversation attending conferences, attending webinars. There are lots of free sort of things out there that you don't even have to pay for. Make sure that you're maintaining your designations. If you have them already, don't let them expire. And guess what? If they expire, guess what you have to do? You have to take the test again. Some of those tests can be painful. They change the standards. But the one thing that I will say, as a talent acquisition professional, we talk about change pre-2020, post-2020 rather. The fundamentals are still the same though. What are employers looking for? We're looking for truth in your resume. We all have a tendency of, obviously you're using the interview, you're using the resume as a way to tout your experience, tout your talents, but make sure that there's truth. There are 4 core items, in my opinion, that still remain the same. Truth in your resume. You have to know the function. You can't fake it. When you get on the job on the first day, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, go." It's not the moment where it's like, "Okay, come on, train me for 3 months." No, they're expecting you to hit the ground running with something. That's why they interviewed you. That's why they hired you. And trust that the folks that made that decision to hire you are committed to your success. So the other thing that we careful to do is don't walk in there sheepishly. Walk in there like the child of the Most High God that you are, confident, not cocky, confident in what he's equipped you with. Now, obviously, you go into the environment, you have to be a positive change. You have to be a positive addition. So obviously, your ability to work in a team setting, that's not negotiable. You still have to interact. You still have to get information from folks. So make sure that you're not the toxic one. And last but not least, focus on results. What is it that you're there to do? You're not there to socialize. You're there to, they hired you for a reason, and it's a business. So focus on results. So what I would say is what employers are looking for: truth in resume, knowledge of the function, ability to work in a team setting, and focus on results. How self-development works for you, organizational memberships, join, attend, equip yourself. Identify your personal goals that you also want to develop. That's your minding the gap. It's leadership skills, it's organizational skills, it's people management, perhaps. Can people learn from you? Are you attractive in the workplace that people want to learn from you? And obviously one of the things, at least in the first world side of things here in America, people always gravitate to folks who are engaging. Not everybody needs to be a public speaker, but obviously you have to be able to at least speak to who you are, speak to what you do. At a minimum, be able to tell people what you do. Be able to tell people, have 2 or 3 points that if you run into your CEO in the elevator, if you run into your CEO or one of your leadership members in the hallway, hi, John, hi, Bob, good to see you. What are you working on? The worst thing to say when somebody says, how are you doing or what's going on? Nothing much is not a response. That's the worst response ever. You work in the company, nothing much? Mind what you say, be tactful in how you say certain things. I'll stop. I can go on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was very good. And just to add to that, self-development is not where you wait for your employer to get that done for you. So sometimes people will wait and they'll say things like, it's part of the benefits of the job, professional development. So my job should send me to a conference. My job should pay for me to get a particular skill that I need to do the job. Well, what I should say about that is you invest in yourself. There are times that you're going to take money out of your pockets to get what you need so you can get the job done and get ready for the next opportunity. But thank you so much for sharing that, Sam.
And if I may add that to your goals for the year. It's that time of the year.
Right.
Add personal development goals. There's a budget within your company typically that they'll say, what do you want to learn?
Mm-hmm.
So pursue those. Sorry.
And then also add that to your personal goals, that, okay, my company is going to do this and I'm going to do this for myself. Because oftentimes, if you don't invest in yourself, then you don't see the value for it. Dr. Harry, this question I'm going to ask you. Now, I've heard people say all the time that, well, I learned this skill or I developed this skill maybe a couple of years ago, and I really don't need to do that. So they keep applying for a job or applying for opportunities, but they don't really know what's going on and what type of skill they need to get. Is it necessary to upskill as one progresses in their career development or their chosen career path?
Well, if I answer it straightly, I say yes. I mean, if you have a career path, I'll assume it's because you have a career goal, right? And if you have a goal, it's just logical for you to develop yourself towards that goal. Now, and I was listening intently to what Sam was saying, and that's quite profound. There are generic competencies or core competencies like the one that NACE came up with, but there are also specific competencies for a role. Now, if I'm to hire someone, if I wear my chief talent officer hat and I want to hire someone into a role or promote someone to a position, I'm thinking a few things. I'm thinking role fitness. I'm thinking role readiness. I'm thinking willingness to do the job. If they're coming from another organization, I'm actually thinking organizational fitness as well, not just having those basic skills and all that. So I think that one thing that we need to start thinking about is, what is my career goal? What path have I created from where I am today to achieving that goal? And what are the development initiatives that will help me at every step in the way to reach that goal? So essentially, you're creating a career path for yourself. You're aligning it with a learning pathway, and then you're executing that learning pathway. The execution of that learning pathway is simply upskilling. Now, if what you are aiming at is not currently in your typical path, is a different career trajectory, you transit into something else entirely, then that is where reskilling comes in, because you are reskilling to branch out into another area. But I just like to bring a kind of structure to how you upskill or reskill yourself for whatever job, whatever career goal that you have. Every job is going to have 4 components, or something we call success profile. The success profile will be, how will you be successful in that job? Or whoever gets that job, how will they be successful? If I can describe in a simple way what a success profile will look like, a success profile will define holistically who the best fit for that role will be. So we have things like technical skills, behavioral expectations, leadership skills, experiences, drivers, and traits that you should have to be successful in that role. Now, the responsibility to find out what those things are for the job you're going for is yours. Most times when a job is published by the likes of Sam, from a talent acquisition point of view, they will highlight a few of those. And if you ask the talent acquisition expert, what are the other considerations for this job? They're going to tell you. They're going to tell you, you need these skills, you need these leadership competencies, you need these experiences, you need these drivers, you need these traits. Now, even if you're not ready for the job today, what they've given you is gold. It becomes the picture of the future you're looking for. And then you can start preparing for that place. I remember, if I tell a story quickly, I remember when I was transiting from my job as a relationship manager in a bank into learning and development and talent and leadership development. Before I got the job, I actually found out what it entails, what is required to be in that role. And while I was a relationship manager, I started developing myself on the side. I actually started speaking at conferences, designing training, doing talent engagement, getting executive coaching certifications, and things like that. And when the opportunity came, I was role ready and I was organizational ready. And that's what I say. I mean, we know this cliche. Don't wait for the opportunity to start preparing. Prepare, so that when the opportunity comes, you can just take it. So everyone that wants to achieve any career feat, that wants to get to anywhere, requires upskilling. But upskilling, like I said, has to be very intentional, has to be targeted. My concern is we use this phrase, oh, just no skill is a waste. Just learn every and anything. I agree, but it depends on where you are in life, right? If you are aiming for a senior executive role, you don't want to start throwing every time. You don't have all the time to throw around. And if I may quickly, the moment you get beyond your middle management level and you are eating executive positions, that's not the time. Everyone knows you can do the job. Doing the job is not a problem, but I will only give you that role because you have certain skills, and you need to know that. But you can only know that if you find out. So do a lot of research, what is required for you to get to that role, build yourself, but think around these pillars. What are the technical requirements for that role in terms of skills? What are the leadership skills requirements? What are the behavioral requirements? What are the experiences you need for that role? What kind of drivers do the person, the best fit for that role should have? What traits should they have? If you plan yourself around those buckets, you are on your path to being role ready, potentially organizationally ready, and of course, started with prayers and favor, the job will be yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harry. I think that is profound. I like the organizational ready. So when I joined Rice University as the Associate Director for Employer Relations, I wasn't organization ready. I got the job because I was skill ready and I had that and I knew what the skills gap were, but I wasn't organization ready. And that was the very first thing I did. I identified that when I got there and I said, okay, that's going to be my number one priority. What does Rice University need from their employees to be successful? If you're going to make it and you're going to progress, what do they need to do? One of the things that I needed to do was see the big picture of the university, not just in my role, not just in my department, not just in the programs that I support, but what is the big picture of the organization? What are they doing? Where are they going? Where do they get all their endowment money from? Why do they pride themselves as the Harvard of the South? Why are they an Ivy League school? What makes them an Ivy League school? And I needed to master that and I needed to get that so I can fall in line. because I didn't want to stick out like a sore thumb. So yes, being organization ready, I think is critical. And then being role ready is also important. And that's why we're having this conversation to begin to look at what is your brand and how to make yourself better. Thank you very, very much. That was very, very good. So I'm going to ask Mr. Oni a question, and then we have one question from Menti. I know it's a lot of information, so please, I would encourage everyone here to please use Menti to ask this question. Like I said earlier, this is a robust panel. These people have a wealth of information and, things that they can share with you. So please, let's take advantage of that. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Oni, a question before I go to the question in Menti. So now we're talking about identifying skills, the skills gaps. We're talking about networking, how to be ready, be role ready, be organization ready. How important is it for an individual to identify any skills gaps that they have when they're trying to make a career transition, or maybe they're seeking a promotion within an existing organization, or they're looking for a whole new opportunity altogether? How important is it, or is it even important at all for somebody to do like a skills analysis to identify any gaps that they may have?
Thank you, Mrs. Ogunye. I think majority of the responses by my fellow panelists and your add-ons as well actually addressed the answers associated with that question, but I'm going to do my best to summarize it. For example, if you are working within an organization, and I did present to an audience of DCH members recently around it, when you are looking for an opportunity to grow within an organization, and I'm not going to go into too much details, but I'm going to zero in eventually on the need to understand and identify the skills gap, to be promoted or to grow in your career. And again, all these are my time-tested truths, what I have actually practiced, what I have actually experienced. I didn't read them in any book. Number one, define and understand your why. Why do you want to be promoted? What people need to understand is that there is a difference between growth and success. Many a time, what we call success in our mind is just growth. I want to be promoted because I need more money. That is not success. And I'm going to come back to that at some point. So define and understand your why. Number two, be value-centric. When you define and understand your why, you need to embed in that the value that you will add to the organization. Because without you being value-centric, you are just going to be chasing shadows. Let your why include how you are going to add value, either to the business that you own or to the business or the organization within which you work. The next one that I've got is, as Brother Sam said earlier, think like your boss. Without you understanding what your boss's expectations are, you probably won't be able to meet those expectations consistently, which means it may hamper your ability to grow. And then he talked about my favorite phrase, which is the phrase that I learned when I lived in the UK, mind the gap. And that's where I'm going to come back to that later. Be a problem solver. You want to grow within your organization. You want to actually be truly successful. Be a problem solver. Again, I'm not here to preach, but I can't really talk for long without referring to our Lord Jesus Christ. If you look into the life and times of Christ, one of the fundamental success factors for Christ was because he was a problem solver. Why did people appreciate him? Why did people eventually believe it? Even though in the midst of that, people hated him, just like we experience in the world today. In your career, what problem are you solving? Are you just going to be making money? Making money does not make you. You need to solve problems. Identify issues that you can help people resolve. Then you become a value add. Then you become really indispensable, depending on your sphere of control. The next one is establish cross-functional relationships. By talking about that, I meant, and I'm again, because I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, and Toastmasters Club is one of the groups that we've got within DCH. I am going to tell you right off the bat, you want to communicate better, you want to lead better, you want to facilitate better, join the Toastmasters Club. That is my story. The next thing is prepare for the next level. As you aspire to grow, understand what the next level is. Define what that next level looks like, and then begin doing today what someone that is at that level would do in a situation that you find yourself today. Of course, we'll talk about you blossoming where you are planted, flourishing there, and all those good stuff. But in terms of the skills gap, you want to grow, but you know that you have skills gap, or maybe you are just starting out and you really don't know how to build yourself so that you become someone within your field that is very well recognized. It is vitally important that you identify someone who is already doing what you intend doing at some point down the road. And hopefully, God helping you, there are people that are approachable and you can talk to them. See if you can sit with them. Like where I am today in my career, I've got an executive mentor, and I meet with this mentor once every month. Neither him nor myself would have anything else that would make us to not meet. Have a mentor. Understand where you want to go. Understand what you need to get there. Now, based on where you are today, then look at actionable steps that you can take to get to where you need to be. Because without clearly articulating this, it's going to be very difficult for you to get to where you want to get to. So understanding and identifying your skill gap is very important. Do whatever you can. For some people, all they need to do is exercise a little bit more to be able to get there. They actually don't need any classroom training. For some, like myself, they need to constantly soak themselves in human development self-help videos. I watch dozens and dozens of TED Talks, podcasts on a daily basis, not just weekly, on a daily basis, depending on what I've got in front of me. And I listen to productions such as the one today that is being recorded to see what else can I pick. I am a lifelong learner. You want to bridge your skills gap, be a lifelong learner. And not just you, the world around you will be the better for it. Back to you, Mrs. Ogunye.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. Again, I'm going to say it over and over again. I think a lot of people need to be hearing this. Please share this link. Encourage people to join. Even if they're driving, they're doing something else, they can just listen to answer this. And we have a whole lot of questions. So our panelists have already prepared for a whole lot of questions. If we're not able to get to all those questions, we will compile them together. We will answer those questions and we can email them out to anyone that requests. So I'm just going to ask that we try and just give quick nuggets so that we run through the questions so that we're able to at least cover a whole lot of things. Thank you so much, our panelists. We really appreciate you. So I'm going to ask some Menti questions. There's two questions. I'm going to ask the first one. I will take that question and then I'll open up the second one for anyone on the panel. This question says, how should an introvert prepare for a job that requires public speaking? The reason I said I'll take that question is because I know I'm an introvert and I know that that's one of the things that I struggle with. If somebody were to ask me today, what is my biggest skill gap and what I need to do for my personal brand, I will say it is networking. And it's interesting because networking is something that you really have to master to do all these things. And networking requires public speaking. So DCH Toastmasters really helped me significantly, and I have to give kudos to that. So when we started DCH Toastmasters, I want to believe maybe about 5 years ago, this is a non-threatening environment where you can actually go and give a speech. Everyone is there for the same reason. So there's no need to feel kind of, uncomfortable being there because you're attending that meeting because you're working on your leadership skills or your public speaking skills. So you make a presentation and people will give you feedback. DCH Toastmasters is one of the reasons why when I make presentations, even at work now, I hardly use and I all those filler words. I've significantly worked on it. So as an introvert, preparing for a job that requires public speaking is number one skills gap. You don't have that, you've got to develop that skill. If you don't develop that skill, here's what's going to happen. You're going to want to make a presentation. You're going to be using a whole lot of filler words like, yes, what, and then you're going to want to run through the presentation. Now you're doing that because you're an introvert and that's who you are naturally. The people listening to your presentation are going to look at it like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not thorough enough. You're not detailed enough, and you're not giving information. And that might be far from the truth. The truth could just be that, and I've done there before, been there, done that. Like this presentation, I just want to run through it so that I'm done. And when I finish, I know that, whoa, that wasn't deep enough. So we introverts, we don't talk a lot, but we internalize a lot. So there's a lot. We listen and we take a lot in. So you may have a presentation. You may want to speak to a group for, that you're doing a presentation. You have all the details of it. But just because you're not comfortable with public speaking can actually come across like you're not doing a good job. So I will say master the skill. It is a skills gap. You have identified it. Toastmasters is a sure way to do it. Listening to skills gap, recording yourself. I've done that before. I stood in front of a full-length mirror and I recorded myself when I wasn't comfortable with Toastmasters yet until I got to that stage. And I looked at it and I said, oh no, my body language, no, this is not, my body language is not consistent with what I'm talking about. So that is something that you have to intentionally work and set goals. I set goals for myself. If I'm going to a conference, I set a very minimum goal of, at this conference or at this event, I'm going to talk to 5 new people that I haven't spoken to before. I don't know who they are. I don't know what I'm going to say to them. But honestly, that gives me a lot of anxiety. I get very anxious about that. But it's a goal, a personal and a professional goal that I've set for myself to say, I'm going to talk to 5. And for you, it doesn't have to be 5. For you, it could be 2. But you've got to master that. You've got to develop. And there's so many tools out there to help introverts with public speaking. But Toastmasters is an awesome one. So now the next question in Menti is somebody wants to know, how soon should they let their manager know that they're willing to explore other options within the organization? And I'll just leave that open to any one of the panelists who wants to take that. And then we'll go to the next question in Menti. But let's try and keep the questions to, just some key nuggets so that we can cover the questions we have. Thank you.
I can take that one. And now, obviously everybody else can chime in. But as a talent acquisition professional, I talk to folks all the time. And I had this example yesterday of a manager who was interviewing a candidate. And in that interview, the candidate was already asking about growth and how they can transition to the next role. And I thought to myself, wow, that candidate really missed it. So when is a good time to start talking to your manager about it? I would say that, one, assess yourself first. How are you doing in your current role? Are you sticking the landing in the primary responsibilities that you have? Now, when you feel comfortable that you're doing that and your performance appraisal reflects that, or the feedback that you're getting from your manager reflects that, then I would say you can begin the conversation around growth, development, and potentially other opportunities outside of the immediate role. But I would also add that there are probably opportunities for you to take on additional responsibilities in your current role. I'll leave it at that and for others to kind of comment.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. We have another question in Menti, and I will direct that question. There's 2 questions, and those 2 questions are really a question that I would really like to ask Mr. Aki. But maybe what I'll do is, because I saw that Dr. Harry wanted to add something to the last question, so I'll ask you this one question and I'll let you say what it is that you wanted to say. And then I'll also have you respond to this question. The question is, do I really need a mentor or a sponsor to excel in my career? So you can make your comment from the last question and then you can answer this question, and then I'll go to Mr. Akin with the next one.
Okay, so I wanted to chime in for the first one. Thanks for noticing that. And so I'll say it depends on where you are. So at the point of interview, actually, I want to know if someone is able to grow in our organization as well. So I'm interviewing you for a role. I want to know if you have the capability to move to do other things. So I want to know what else you bring to the organization. So asking questions about growth for me wouldn't be a red flag. However, asking the question in a way that makes me feel you're not going to stay long in the role I'm hiring you for is the red flag.
Yes.
That's for me. So again, I think, because if you actually come in, and I'll give you an example, I'm hired into a role that covers a country, but I've actually have a global experience. And this is a global organization. I already know that such a person can be leveraged across the organization. And to Sam's point, it could be increase their current scope or potentially move them into a larger role in the future. So it's very tricky. It depends on where you are. And I also think it depends on your manager. So if you're already in a role and then you want another role, again, even if you are the best performer in the role, sometimes you have managers, let's be honest, we have managers that are not very keen on letting you go. As a matter of fact, I had a coaching session this morning and I had a manager who says, you know what, this is my star performer. You want to take them away. And I'm like, think about it from this point of view. We are not taking, or your company is not taking them away. Your company is helping them develop the individual. So it all depends on where you are, who your manager is. And if you know your manager, you know how best to position your request to grow to them. And again, I mean, so it depends on a lot of factors. I'll put it that way. The other question, which I've now forgotten, if you may please remind.
Yes. The question is, the person is asking and they're saying, do I really need a mentor or sponsor to excel in my career?
I'll say the answer is maybe, not always yes, not always a no. I think there are many more personalities that you need for your career. We often talk about a mentor because on the shoulder of a mentor, you can see the future. We talk about the sponsor because they can speak for you where you are not. But there are other role players that are not necessarily mentors or sponsors to you that can take on the role of a mentor, the role of a sponsor, depending on where they find themselves. So I'll say, if you don't have one that you call, oh, this is my sponsor, it doesn't mean someone is not really sponsoring your career. The person, however, that you must align to almost 100%, whether you have a mentor, a sponsor or not, is your line manager. Your line manager can make or mar your career. No matter how strong your sponsor is, they will still need to find out about your performance from your manager. If a sponsor recommends you for a role, someone will still go back and say, how have you been performing? Unfortunately for you, the person that can speak to your performance on a daily basis is your line manager. I always tell people there are 3 minimum knowledge you need to have in your organization. You need to know your company, you need to know your customers, and you need to know your colleagues. Now, the chief of your colleagues you need to know is your manager. And what you really need to know about your manager is your manager's interest, their approach, and how they can be successful with your contribution. The truth is, if you are valuable to your manager, if you are aligned to their styles, most likely they'll be willing to support you. The very first thing I do when you get me into a team that is new, or if you hire someone to be my manager, my conversation with them is, listen, I'm here to work hard, but I'm here to help you to be successful. All I need from you is for you to develop me in return. And I can tell you, oftentimes I have achieved a lot with that. So I would just put it in that point of view. But if you have a sponsor and you have a mentor, it is great. But how many people, to get a mentor also, you need to chase after the mentor, by the way. And I'm sure, like you said, he chases after the mentor. And then to have a sponsor, the sponsor have to show interest in you. What do you bring to the table for the sponsor to feel like I can throw my weight behind you? How strong is your performance? Are you really a potential? How great are you as a talent? And all those things actually come to play. I will leave it there. I know Sam has in perspective as well.
It's interesting. Mr. Oni said that he listens to podcasts a lot. I'm listening to Brother Harry, and he's identifying some characters within mentors and what have you. I'll add to this that I listened to Jay Shetty. He's a former Buddhist, and regardless of that, but he has this podcast, and I listened to it, and he talks about the 8 types of people that you need in your life. You know, one of them is a mentor, but he also mentions that one is a cheerleader, one is a gut checker. He says one is a caretaker, one is a character builder, one is a supporter. You need the rock. You also need a champion, and you need somebody that'll challenge you in addition to the mentor. So I'm not saying that you get 8 different people, but it was an interesting podcast to listen to, because in many cases, your mentor could be a number of those things for you too. Your wife, your spouse could be a number of those things for you. Your children could be a number of those things for you as well. Your friends. So it's an interesting thing that, you know, to say, yes, you need a mentor. Yes. And it's truly a maybe. And I'm writing down on my notes, Sam, get a mentor, you know, but, you know, it's a very dynamic, and it's a very evolving thing that we're talking about. And there's no perfect answer. You know, it's a journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was fantastic. And just to quickly add to that, sometimes we have mentors, we just don't know that they're mentors, because we do have people, even in our profession, that we admire, maybe at work. And it could be a line manager, like you just admire what they do or how fast they've grown, but you just haven't identified that as that. So you may want to start from there. I'm trying as much as possible to get through our questions of Menti, because those are questions people are asking for. Like we said, we'll get to our questions. So there's another question in Menti. And like I said before, if the panelists are willing to share their contact information for people who want to really have that additional, maybe not on this platform, time that they can reach out to them, just to have a conversation with them. If they're willing to share their information, please let us know that, and please reach out to them, because I don't think that I'm going to ask this question, and this question is for Mr. Oni, but I don't think that you can really give all the things that you need to give. So let's just keep it to very minimal so we can get through. What are the skills required? Do you have time management tips and tricks to help you be efficient as you support multiple projects in your role?
Thank you, Mrs. Agriye. Very quickly, let me just read out a quote on mentoring before I answer that question. And here is it. If you know where you're going, your journey is short. If you know how to get there, your journey is shorter. If you have someone who has been there to teach you how to get there, your journey is shortest. If that person decides to take you there, you are already there. And that is what mentoring is all about. Now to the question that you just asked me regarding the time management tricks and tips. When people talk about time management, we all have 24 hours in a day. Maybe you just need to optimize your time. But here is my trick as a leader. I don't manage people. I don't coordinate people. I lead people. And as a leader, my tricks are very simple, the chief of which is this. Each day, when I step into my office, the first question I ask myself is, how am I going to lead my team to be effective today? I focus on effectiveness first. The second thing is efficiency, which I hardly even focus on. Somebody will hear that and ask me, okay, so what's the point, or what's the difference? Effectiveness to me means doing the right things. Think about that for a moment. Efficiency to me means doing things right. If you focus on efficiency and you ignore effectiveness, I can tell you this, more than 70% of the time, you probably will be wrong. But when you focus on effectiveness first, and if by the grace of God, you have good people on your team, those people will deliver on efficiency. So doing the right things is effectiveness. Doing it right is efficiency. Number one trick or tip for you is ask yourself whether you're a leader or you are not. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this the right things? Because if you are doing the wrong things, but you are doing them right, you are going to be wrong. Do you want to be right? Do you want to optimize your time? Focus on effectiveness and ask yourself that question. Am I doing the right things? Back to you.
Thank you very much. That is awesome. Again, like I said, let us take advantage of the mentee to ask our questions that we have. And I know that if you're comfortable or if you feel comfortable or you prefer to ask your question through the chat box, please go ahead and do that. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and do that through the chat box. So I want us to shift gears a little bit, because initially at the beginning, I talked about NACE's core competencies, because I think that's really important for people to understand what employers are looking for. Because if I'm looking for something white and you're bringing something red, it's not going to match up and it's not going to add up. I'm going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I want to talk about this, and I'm going to ask Dr. Harry this question only because I struggle with that a little bit. I struggle with, where do you draw the line of when we're talking about equity and inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Where do we draw the line of people saying that I'm being blacklisted because of my race, because of my accent, because of whatever that might be, maybe because I'm a female or all of that? Where do you draw the line? Where do you not get yourself in a rabbit hole of focusing on that and being fixated on that, as opposed to doing the skills and getting what you need? Now, I know what I think about that. If you're the best and you bring the best of who you are, your race, your color, your accent, it shouldn't matter. What should matter is the skills that you're bringing. So if I'm fixated on that and I'm not putting any energy in upscaling, reskilling, retooling, or doing all of those things, then really I'm doing myself a disservice. So my question to you, Dr. Harry, is another core competence identified by NACE is equity and inclusion. What was interesting to me, because I do a lot of research too, is it's just the equity and inclusion part. The diversity is not in there. So I don't know if you have any perspective on that, because I've tried to figure it out and I really don't have the answer to that, because we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what employers are looking for really is equity and inclusion. Would you say this is not just for the employer, but even the potential employee or the existing employee? They need to bring some aspect of this competency to the table. So if I'm applying to your organization, yes, you're going to give me the equity and inclusion part of it. But on my end, am I supposed to bring anything to the table in that area too?
I think the answer is a straight yes. And part of my role as chief of talent is that I think about performance development, talent management, and DEI. And I think what people need to start thinking about as employees is to start thinking about the culture of the organization you're joining. Mm-hmm. In North America, for certain, DEI is top on the agenda of many organizations. It's a requirement from a government and regulation point of view. So if you're coming in, as a matter of fact, at a leadership level, you will be measured on how you drive the DEI agenda for your organization from a diversity point of view, Black, LGBTQ, that sexual orientation, ethnicity, whatever it is, religion, how you kind of manage that whole context. And there will be targets, right? So as a leader or as someone coming to an organization, how do you show up as someone who has the capability to actually drive a DEI agenda? Very simply put, position yourself as inclusive. Mm-hmm. Position yourself as fair. The examples that are given to you, position yourself as someone who has demonstrated fairness, who has demonstrated inclusion in everything that you're doing. And that way, people start thinking, if you come to this organization, you can actually fit. So it is something, whichever level you're in, it is something you need to learn to do. And it's very interesting because as believers, we struggle with that. The first thing that comes to mind when the subject of DEI comes up with a believer is, oh no, sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is just a minute aspect of it. There are different elements of it. I mean, just a few days ago, we were actually having an engagement in a meeting, and then we said no voice, because there are people on the autism spectrum who cannot really understand what we are saying when we are talking, or speak as fast. People who stutter when they are talking. People who are hard of hearing, who would prefer that we type things out. Being inclusive is not just about sexual orientation. Being inclusive is saying everyone is human. Just be human in your thinking. And that comes forth when you are being interviewed. Now, the other side of things is, oh, I am being victimized because of how I look, because of how I sound, and all that. First of all, I agree with you. People can look down on everyone else, but nobody looks down on the best. All my jobs, I've been at executive levels in the last many years, and I'm still very black as they get, right? And I don't really sound this is the point. I've been able to work in Europe, in parts of Africa, I work in the United States, and my accent is messed up. And when I'm really myself, my Nigerianness shows. The point is, if you are adding value, people tend to overlook how you sound. And it's all about you being very clear in the way you talk. Now learn to pronounce some words the way people will understand them. If you keep saying water, 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 they don't get what you're saying, then try to say water so they can get it. Those are some of the elements of DEI that needs to really come in. And accept everyone. One of the ways you can really accept everyone is to be authentic. Bring your real self to work. If you're a Christian, you're a Christian. Now you can preach the gospel. I preach the gospel all the time. But please, the very first thing you are doing at your work is your work. If you are the best at what you do, people will ask you, and many times people have asked me, how are you able to navigate all these complexities with everything you're doing? And then I've been able to tell them, it's the grace of God. And at the moment I said those things, I suddenly realized, oh, there are many believers in this place. But put what you're there first. Put what you're there to do first and do it well. Respect people for who they are. Don't look down on anyone. Respect means that I will be considerate. Don't talk too fast if someone needs to learn slowly from you. Don't learn to pronounce words where people will understand what you're saying and things like that. I think those kind of principles, and they show, but Sam will let you know, I'm sure when you conduct interviews, you will know that this person is not going to be inclusive. I will say this joke and I will move on. Someone was being interviewed at the port of entry in a particular country, Mauritius, and is a believer. And they told him, what have you come to do in this country? Because Nigerians get a visa at port of entry in Mauritius. I believe they still do, but this was many years ago. And they asked him, what have you come here to do? Simply put, I've come for tourism or whatever. He responded, I have come to take over. The Lord has led me to take over. The dude was sent back to Lagos. Now you can express your faith in every way, but express it the way people understand. The only way they'll understand that you have come to take over is you have really come to take over. You know, they don't want you to do that. So I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you so much. That is interesting. So this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think is something that we really need to talk about, only because of our orientation. Last week in our service, Pastor Bayo was talking about the way we've been trained, the way we've been made to believe, and that's sometimes how we show up at work. And just in line with what Dr. Harry was saying, I've seen people show up with, oh, I'm a child of God, and they have to know it here at the job. That's not evangelism. Evangelism is everywhere. Your job, you still have to use some type of emotional intelligence. And I'll give an example before we move on to the question. Again, if you have any questions, please use the chat box. When I was hired in my department at Rice University, I'm the only Black person there, female. So that's like 2 strikes already. I didn't even know the history of the university when I was going in there in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusive. It was after I started there, my husband gave me some background and I looked at some things and I realized that I was in a place where I had to work twice as hard. I could have taken it as, well, why do I have to do that? You know, this and that and that. I could have taken it as that, but I decided to take it the opposite way. I decided to say, okay, I am going to be the bridge, or I'm going to be the gateway for people that look like me and sound like me to come in here. That's how I chose to look at it. So your perception and how you look at things are really very important. Would I say that they don't have a whole lot of work to do in the area of DEI? I can sit here and tell you that they're far from understanding what it is, and they have a long way to go. But then it's a case of looking at the glass half full or half empty. I just chose not to look at that. I chose to show up and show out at my very best, so that I'm a gateway for saying, well, it's not that bad to bring people like that. Yes, she may have an accent. Yes, I don't know if I was hired with the DI initiative, and I really don't care if that's what it is. I just know that I found myself in this position. I found myself in a place where I have to interface with all the big wigs at, you know, this university, and I positioned myself for that. So I brought that to the table. But what really helped me to bring that to the table is in my previous job, all of a sudden, I was told to supervise somebody who's a transgender. And they were going from being a female to a male, and they just did the surgery. So they were in that confused stage of show up today, I don't know if I'm a man, show up tomorrow, and I don't know if I'm a woman. And all this is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I didn't know this. I just knew that there was something, you know, different about that person. So my very first day of meeting that person as a supervisor, you know, you get to know them. The very first thing she said to me is, I'm a transgender. Do you have a problem with that? And when I say she asked that question, she didn't ask me the way I'm asking you. She asked me because she was expecting an answer. If you understand that, she like, do you have a problem with that? That question threw me off, number one, I'll be honest, but that's where you have to be ready for anything that comes your way. But I didn't let that show. And my response to her is that why should that be a problem? And why are you asking me, like, why should that be a problem? And we started this tussle back and forth because she was still just expecting something. So she'll walk in one day and say, oh, I'm showing up as a man today. I'm like, that's fine. Just like Mr. Oni said, these are the tasks. This is what you need. This is what you need to bring in. Or she'll show up and she'll say, I'm showing up as a man in the morning, and in the afternoon, I'm going to be a woman. So she'll tell me, I'm showing up from 9 to 12 as a man, but from 1 to 5, I'm going to be a woman. How do you supervise somebody like that? So I had to go back and say, okay, what are some of the skills I need to learn? So, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want to be confused. Like my mind, I don't want to be like, I just want to supervise somebody. I don't want to think about doing a man and a woman. And it was a tussle, it was a struggle, but I was learning is what I'm trying to say. That the reason I'm giving this example is I had to learn diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do I include her in the project? How do I give her equal everything like everyone else, not because she's showing up today, sick today, or, you know, taking time off because her hormones are working and she has to go home. I just had to be fair, and I had to know that she's still a part of the team and I still have to supervise her. Then she got very sick, and I personally said, what can I get you? What can I get for you to help you through the day? She said, I'd like some soup or whatever. I drove out of the job to go buy her lunch and buy all of those things, part of being inclusive. So that is some of the things that have helped me. So that's why this question saying, is it only the employer? Yes, the employer they've done their part. They hired this person and they handed this person over for me to supervise. If I don't show up like I know what I'm doing when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, then it's going to be impossible for me to supervise this person. But the long story short to all of that is when she finally left the job for whatever reason that she left, she came back, and I still have that card till today. She wrote a long card, and she wrote about how she came to try me, she came to test me. I showed up, I just accepted her for who she is. I mean, she just wrote a good report. So for diversity and equity inclusion issues, it's not always they want to victimize me because I'm Black or I'm white. And even if that's the case, you can flip the script. You can flip the script on them and say, yeah, even though this is it, and it's a tough thing. I'm not gonna lie, it's not as easy as it sounds. But again, your mind, you just have to be, it's not as easy as it sounds. I'm going through it. How do you show up as the only Black female? It's tough. It's very, very tough. We had an event at work yesterday with all these people. I was like, there were maybe a few female, but I was the only Black, and I had to have small talk. I had to have conversation. You know, they're having their drinks and all of that. They say, oh, you want a glass of wine? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get something to drink. I'll get something to drink. And I went to the bar and I said, do you have ginger ale? They said, yes. Can I have a cup of ginger ale? I had my cup of ginger ale. You couldn't tell if that was white wine or ginger ale. And I'm, socializing, drinking. So that's part of the things that we need to figure out how we adjust that, as opposed to saying, oh, they don't like Black people, oh, they hate. And I'm not saying that that's not the case. That could be the case. So this diversity and equity inclusion issue is a real deal.
Sir, can I just say something in 30 seconds? Literally 30 seconds. I'm going to be very fast because the subject is very important. And if you're going to grow in corporate America, you need to understand how to navigate it. The first thing, diversity is like being invited to the party. And inclusion is being asked to dance. Now, if you are in the space, you need to invite everyone. You have been invited. If anyone else comes to the table, you have to allow them. And as a leader, you need to dance with everyone at your party, regardless of who you are. Now, I also believe in being open. So initially, too, I would put something else in the glass and say, and whatever you think is there. But I think it has a second or third level. I don't take alcohol. And they go, is it for health reason or for faith reason? I tell them it's a personal choice. Because if you have a choice to do your own thing, I have a choice to do my own thing. And it's literally live and let us live. That kind of principle.
Thank you, Dr. Harry. You're there. I'm not there yet. You're the professional coach. I'm not there yet, but that is something.
But it's a long journey also.
That's something that I will work on. I'm not there yet. I'm just taking it in baby steps, like Sam said, it's a journey. So I'm on that journey. So in line of this equity and inclusion thing that we're talking about, because again, it showed up on NACE's core competencies. So employers are looking for it. In as much as we're doing that self-development that we talked about, we need to be looking at it, not just in the technical skills and all of that. So I'm going to ask Mr. Akin this question, and I want you to answer this question thinking about what we just talked about, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Professionalism is one of the 8 core competencies. We know that. How does one add value to an organization by mastering this core competence? Because being a professional also is knowing emotional intelligence. So you don't go to an event like I talked about or Dr. Harry talked about, and they say, oh, do you want a glass of wine? And your response is, oh, I don't drink, I'm a believer. God doesn't want me to drink. That's not, how do you act as a professional just to know that, anyway, I'm not even going to say the other example. I'm going to let you respond to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Ogunye. Professionalism, in my word, encompasses 2 things: action and behavior. You can refer to different journals, articles, papers. At the end of the day, you want to summarize professionalism, you zero in on action and behavior. And I'll give you a real life example that most people can relate to. And this is very generic too. I am an employee. I've just joined a company. And the company gave me the option of the resumption time window is somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. And you can leave 8 hours after that time that you show up, roughly. I mean, with pluses or minuses here and there. To those who have that kind of timeline. Some of us, we do what we need to do, not because of its start time or closing time. Now, here's my point. You get to work. As a new employee, that the window for you to get to work is between 7:30 and 8:30. You say you're a believer. You get to work around 8:45. You drop your bag in your office. You went to the coffee machine. You started chatting with somebody for another 10, 20 minutes. And then you realize that, oh, there's this person that you hadn't seen in a while. You went to their office. By the time you actually get back into your office to do meaningful work, it's already 10 o'clock. Now you ask yourself, if this was your business Are you going to run it that way and be successful? And I'm not talking about a particular demographic doing this. It's at different levels of a typical organization. So, but as believers, I just want to encourage us, let's bring our total self to work, and let's make sure that we are conscious of our actions, we are conscious of our behaviors, and action will drive the standards that we deliver, that we exhibit within an organization. And if we don't maintain this high standard, our business will probably not derive the value that they expect to derive by hiring us from us because of how we conduct ourselves. The same thing with behaviors. How much useful time are you really putting in? I was preparing for a session recently that I didn't know anything about, but this group trusted me. They said, we'd really like you to speak about it. And then I ran into the analogy that when you are thirsty and you are leaving the office and there is a $5 bill on the kitchen table in the office and there is a bottle of water, usually most people will feel very comfortable picking up the water bottle. Why? Because they see that as taking and not stealing. But if it's the $5 bill, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to steal somebody's money. Again, I just want us to be conscious of our behaviors. Whether you are looking at this in a DEI context or you are just looking at this broadly from an organizational context, what are the actions that we take every day based on the roles that we fill in our organization? What kind of behaviors are we exhibiting? And when you bundle these two together, are we living a life that people really want to get, that people will really like to live, that people want to get involved with? I just like us to ask ourselves that question. So professionalism is the action you take, the behavior that you exhibit. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is awesome. I like the phrase that you said, bring your total self to the job. And if you think, or if you work on that mantra to bring your total self to the job, by converse, you will be working on your total self, because we're still all a work in progress. So you would know that area. Another area that we need to be conscious of is just social media and what we do, because oftentimes you see people sending messages, taking personal calls at work when they should be doing the work. So when you incorporate all of those things into being a professional, I set aside time that I do that, because I know I have time that I know that, okay, it's my lunchtime or whatever. I know how I space it out. And I'm doing that just because of a conscious effort of, it's not my job. I don't own the job. It's not my business yet. So I don't want to just get into the habit of doing that. So professionalism is something that is an ongoing process, and it's something that it's a continuous basis and something that we have to be intentional about. I want us to be mindful of our time. We only have 10 minutes. I don't see any more questions in the Menti. Please use the Menti to ask any questions that you have, or you can also use the chat box to ask your question. But while we're waiting for questions in the chat box, I am going to ask Sam a question. And if you can just answer that in like a minute or so that we can get through some of these questions. I've heard, okay, yeah. Yes, okay. So I've heard many people say things about, and I've counseled people on that too. So if I'm wrong, I really want to learn also. So I'll give you an example. I've heard people say things like, I want to be a human resources professional, maybe doing the kind of thing that you do, and I have an undergrad degree. Do I really need to go invest and get a master's degree in human resources and pay all this money, maybe take some loans, or can I just go ahead and get the SHRM certificate, well, the Society for Human Resources Management? Can I just go through and get the certification and be certified to do that, or do I really need to invest in that? So I've had questions, and to be honest with you, I've always told people, and I've always asked people, why are you getting the master's degree? What are you trying to do? Are you looking for a job, or are you looking to build a career? Their response to those questions will help me guide them in which way to go. So, but I would like to know from you, what is your take on that? Is that true or false, and why?
So interesting that you're asking me that question because I'm a guy that has both. So I will say that, you know what, they're not substitutes for each other. A master's is more broad. Certification is more specialized. But obviously in the mix of all of that, there's a financial aspect to it as well. So here's my encouragement to you, to anyone who may be considering this, is explore both. If the direct answer is, if somebody were to force me to say, what should I do? I'll ask them what their financial situation is. Do they have the time to also do it? Because again, if you're going for a master's, it does take, it'll take time out of, your day and what have you, more so than a certification. It really depends on the person's circumstance. You don't need a master's to be an HR professional, nor do you need the certification to be in HR. I got into HR before I got my master's. I got into HR before I got my certification. But at the bottom line, you just need to be able to meet the qualifications set by the company for the job that you're looking at. Getting the master's, getting the certification does open doors, is what I would say. It's a tricky thing. I don't want to, there is no silver bullet answer. I don't want to lead people in the wrong direction on this path. It really would depend on your personal circumstance.
Thank you so much.
Master's or a certificate.
Thank you so much. And that's usually how I guide my conversation with people who ask me that question. I would love for this to go on. I would really love for it because I think it's a good conversation that we're having. And I think we still have a lot of questions that would be nice to help. But again, with all things, being a professional, we have to keep things in the limit. So we have to, we're limited with time. So now what I'm just going to do is have the panelists in a minute. Please, let's keep it to a minute because we want to live by the example that we're setting. Let's keep it to a minute and just give a final comment or something you want everyone on this platform to take away from everything that you've either heard or everything that you've said. Just in 1 minute, what are the key takeaways? What do you want somebody to walk away with? We can start with Sam.
I started off by sharing with you what the plan is and what have you, but I think I would end with what my final slide sort of spoke to, and really it's know yourself, plan, stay focused, and act. If you do those 4 things consistently, I think you'll be able to measure success in landing and also in your career journey.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Akin.
Thank you very much. Career transition or starting out creates uncertainties, and I want people to recognize that. But it can be the best thing that ever happened to you. Invest in human development self-help programs. Maybe it may cost you $12 or whatever to subscribe to a YouTube channel or join TEDx talk group, but invest in that. Join a Toastmasters club. Very important. It will cost you about $7.50 per month. That's how cheap it is. But the resources that you get, they are priceless. Wherever you are, if you're in transition, choose to flourish, choose to blossom, volunteer. It's also very important that you prepare yourself, ready for what is next. The question that I want you to always ask yourself is, if you are aspiring to move to the next level, how would the person that I like to be do the things that I'm about to do now? If you are able to ask yourself that question each time, if whether in transition or not, and you're able to provide yourself a honest answer, not just you, not just your career, the world around you, I can tell you, that's my story, will be the better for it. Back to you, Mrs. Ogunye.
Thank you so much. And finally, Dr. Harry.
Thank you very much. I think what I'll say is to just remember, in addition to everything that's been said, that what oxygen is to your life is what development is to your career. Whatever you do, invest in developing yourself. That is one. Number 2 is be authentic. People will trust you if they are dealing with your real self, If you are logical, you're competent, and if you have empathy, if you care for them. So bring your real self, like Mr. Oni said earlier, to work every time. And I believe you get the best you can get. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for me, just to round this up, I would say for you to do what we call a SWOT analysis on yourself. I do that at the beginning of every year. And I'm getting ready to do that now as we're winding down the year. Identify what your strengths are. Identify what are your weaknesses, because as you identify your strength, you should also be able to identify what are your weaknesses. It could be something as simple as, I need to really improve on my technology skills, because I hear people say sometimes, oh, the social media technology is for the young people. No, identify what your weaknesses are. Then look at what are some of the opportunities out there. The opportunities in a project-driven environment, the opportunity in a people business, really, what are the opportunities out there? And number 3, what are the threats? What are the things that you have to really deal with? Is it a diversity and equity inclusion issues like we talked about, or whatever that is? But so do a SWOT analysis on yourself. Nobody needs to see that. Write it down, make it plain. That's what the Bible says. Write it down in black and white. Look at it. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities that I need to take advantage of? And what are the threats? And make a plan towards that goal. At this point, I want to really thank everyone. I really don't know how to thank our panelists. These are global people. Please, let's give them a virtual round of applause. Let's do that. Let's show them some love. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. Let's say something to them in the chat box just to thank them, because they shared a lot of information with us. They come from, different backgrounds, years and years and years of experience that they've brought here today. And they've shared so many, many things for us. I always tell people, if you go to a conference, seminar, or whatever, take one thing that you've heard, just one thing, and implement it right away. Don't wait. Because if you wait, then you're going to think too much of it. Just take one thing and begin to implement it. If that one thing is, I'm going to get a mentor. If that one thing is, I'm going to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. If that one thing is, I'm going to do a SWOT analysis on myself. Whatever that is, take one thing and run with it. Again, this is the Dominion Chapel DCH Empowerment Team. We do this kind of sessions every quarter. I want to encourage you to be on the lookout to see when we put these announcements out, because we're very intentional about what we do. We look at a Christian and the holistic point of view, not only coming to church and all of those things, but we want you to be the best of who you are. This is a month, for those that are not members of Dominion Chapel, this is a month that we're talking about empowerment in the church, and we're going to wrap it up tomorrow. This is the last session. We've had so many sessions, and the goal is for us to empower ourselves as believers, because at the end of the day, an empowered believer, an empowered Christian, an empowered person is really a successful person. So thank you so much, and be on the lookout. We also have a platform that we call Project Elevate. You can send me a private message if you want to be included in this platform. It's a WhatsApp platform, and we've been very, very intentional about just not having all kinds of everything in that platform. We put that platform on that platforms because of the nature of the job that I do. A lot of people will reach out to me and say, hey, can you help me fill this position? Pastor Gbenga does the same too. So we will post open positions, and we will make a direct referral. We'll refer somebody directly. So at least you have an opportunity to be considered. If there are training opportunities, there's a cybersecurity training going on right now. Pastor Gbenga was able to bring that. We put that on Project Elevate, and it's a free training. So people are doing the cybersecurity training for free and all manner of things like that. So if you're interested in being a part of Project Elevate, the only thing is, I just want you to know that we don't post birthdays in there. We don't post end of the year, happy new month greeting, all those kind of videos and forwarded message. We don't do that at all. We only post anything that is professional development or career related. So if you want to join that, please send me a DM, or I'll put my phone number in the chat box. You can send me your name and your number, and I'll add you to that group. So thank you again to all the participants. Thank you for taking your Saturday morning to just come and learn and invest in yourself, really. And also for me, I've learned a lot from this. I want to thank everyone. Pastor Gbenga is really just going to do the final comments, and then we're going to stay on for another 10 minutes till about 12:10. If anyone wants to ask a specific question to any one of the panelists, and at 12:10, we're just going to end the meeting. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Thank you. Over to you, Pastor Benga.
Thank you very much, panelists. I mean, that was awesome. I was just soaking it in. I've really been blessed because I'm going through a transition myself. So this has been very helpful. It's become like I've seen tools. I see stuff that I need to work on. Thank you very much, Dr. Harry. I know you're a very busy man, but we're grateful that you were able to make it. Mr. Onia and Sam, you guys have been busy from one program to another. May the Lord reward your efforts in Jesus' name. And as much as we could, we tried to diversify. So we have a lady amongst us so that it won't be an all-men panel. And thank you very much, Sister Yo, for moderating this. And everybody here is busy. These are successful people. Intelligent, smart, and most importantly, Christians. And they're all married. And they still found time on a Saturday morning to come to be a blessing. Thank you very much. For the investment. For me, this is an investment which some people pay. Pay $1,000 for this, and we're giving it to us free of charge. So, for as many as I've not done that, I need you to just say something nice to them, encourage them. We're not paying them; God is paying them. But just encourage them. Tell them how you've been blessed, and may the Lord continue to bless each and every one of us in the mighty name of Jesus. In the absence of that, okay.
Yeah, just one more thing. I just want to make a quick correction to what I said earlier. I'm getting overwhelmed trying to get everybody's name and their phone number in the chat box that wants to be added to the Project Elevate platform. So what I've done is I've just put my phone number in the chat box. If you just send me for me to put you in the group, I'm going to need your first name, your last name, and your phone number. And I'm just getting overwhelmed trying to pull it out from here. So I put my phone number in the chat box and I will put it again because I know there's so many messages that are coming from there. Just send me a text message with your name. And as soon as this is over, I will add you to the Project Elevate so that you will see all the training opportunities that we have as we receive them, or job opportunities. Thank you so much. So thank you, everyone. This concludes the seminar. Thank you. Again, this is a DCH initiative. We want to thank the church leadership for even allowing us to do this. Thank you to everyone that is not a DCH member that has joined today. Please find the time to come and visit us, worship with us. We have actually, starting next week, we have a 9 o'clock service and we have an 11 a.m. service. If you're in the Houston area or if you're visiting Houston at any time, we would love to have you. We would love to see you. Come and worship with us so we can get to meet you one-on-one. Or you can join us for our midweek Bible study online, virtual every Wednesday. So thank you so much. And it's 12:05. I know I said 12:10, but I still want to hold on to that 10-minute commitment. So we will be on here till 12:15 for people who have personal questions or, to any one of the panelists, to myself, to Pastor Benga or whatnot. And at 12:15, I am going to end the meeting. Thank you. And for this, you can unmute yourself, or you can do a raise of hand so that we do it in order. And then I will just have you unmute, and then you can ask your question. I think this was awesome. So while we're waiting for people to ask questions, I think this was awesome. Anyway, let's just do a quick closing prayer. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to be able to minister to your people and for us to be ministered to. Thank you for giving us the grace. We know that we did not do anything in our power, or we didn't do anything because we think we're smart or because we think that we know it all. We were not leaning on our own understanding. Thank you for guiding us. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for being in this conversation today. For as many that are here that are trying to figure out which way to go, oh Lord, show them, guide them, give them direction in the name of Jesus. Let this event, this seminar that they attended today, let it be a testament for what you're going to do in their lives in the name of Jesus. Our Lord and our God, we thank you. Thank you for the successful start of this program and the end of this program. We look forward to many more with your guidance, with your leading, with the leading of the Holy Spirit for the empowerment of your people and for the edification of the body of Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Amen. That was good. That was very good.
Yes.
Yeah, it really was very good. And
you
the
guys,
others-
you panelists are just something else.
We have a question on Toastmaster.
Aki.
Sister Ayo, we have a
Yes.
question on Toastmaster.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, please
I'm going to let
address
Mr.
that.
Aki answer that one.
Oh, no, okay. How does the Toastmaster program run? That's